Hey guys, what's going on? Oathkeeper here, and man oh man, we got a huge tier shift yesterday. We got roughly 30 mons, not exactly 30, but I'd say about 27-ish. And we are definitely going to, jump right into that. But first things first, let's do some intros. And you got me, of course, and then you got GW, Greninja Warrior.
What's up, guys? Greninja Warrior here, boy.
And we got Spatial Rendezvous.
Guys, my signature move hits 100% of the time, 90% of the time.
And we got Mary Annabelle.
Hello. Don't have a fancy quote to say. I'm here.
And Awin.
I'm here. GW sucks.
Yeah, classic. And last but surely not least, Zerovis.
Hey guys, Zero here.
And we were going to have a special guest this week, Hoenn confirmed, but due to a quote-unquote leak in his home or domicile, he will not be making an appearance, so hopefully he gets that sorted out. Maybe he could be on next time. But anyway, moving on. So recently, I want to say about a week and a half ago, there were a couple of promotions in the NU room. Myself and Zerovis did get promoted to moderator, so Zero, congrats to you, well deserved, I would say.
You can be here.
Same goes to you all.
Thanks. All right, so that's enough tooting our own horn. And we just wanted to give one more shout out to Davin, who ended up winning the NU Open for the Smoggin Grand Slam. So congrats to him. I think that was well deserved.
Yeah, way to go, Davin. That was honestly an amazing final couple matches too. It was a full best of 3 too, and it was really amazing to watch. Like, he really clinched it in the last game too. With I think it was a bit of the matchup, but he did outplay Moot as well in that last game.
Yeah. I mean, I was watching all the games. Yeah, he definitely came through in the clutch. So yeah, good job to him. All right, so let's kind of get right down to it. So first, let's get to the 2 mons that left NU, and I'm glad we kind of lost more than we gained, or gained more than we lost. So the first 2, the only 2 mons that left were Ditto, but who cares, and I'd say the big one, at least I consider it a big loss, Golurk, Lurky Boy. It was definitely a powerhouse. So it's kind of a shame to see it go. So, how do you guys think it'll, affect them at a GW? What do you think?
The Golurk leaving? Yeah. I think that'd be pretty big for sure. And Golurk, with Choice Band, pretty much Tuba KO'd or O-Code, literally everything except for, maybe Avalugg. If you have a Miltank, you pretty much have to get the play right. If you get the play wrong, you're taking, at least, 70%. Depending on what move you get those for. It can easily 2-KO Quagsire, easily 2-KO Eldegoss. It can nearly O-Code with Heat Crash as well. I think it's going to make Stall a lot better as well. Spatial, what are your thoughts?
Golurk was just one of those mons that it's really hard to switch into, unconditionally, but if you had the right offensive checks, then if you could just keep pressure on it, it wouldn't be a threat. But I do think its wall-breaking capabilities will be sorely missed, especially considering how we actually have some great new defensive tools at the moment.
Yeah, I mostly saw it as the rock, and well, at the very least, we have a whole bunch of new rockers, or ground type rockers. So at least that role that Golurk filled will be somewhat replaced. But yeah, I'm going to miss and Golurk a lot.
Yeah, Golurk was just such a sick wall breaker with 124 base attack. I miss it, and I want it to come home.
Yeah, honestly, I think that its power will be missed.
for all the reasons you mentioned, but at the same time, like the big influx of toys we got to play with, I think its roles have like essentially been refilled in a way. And I mean, I think it is a good thing that it's gone to, for one specific reason, is that it was powerful enough that people were running like mons specifically to be able to check a physical goal. Like, for example, like an itemless Rotom is something that I would run a lot because it ate both of the coverage moves, and then it was immune to Poltergeist because it didn't have an item. So once the meta starts running like specific checks like that, it is an indication that a mon's a bit much. But I think overall, like, we got a lot of toys to play with, so we should be fine.
Yeah, we definitely got a lot of toys to play with. And speaking of which, we were just gonna, jump right into that at this moment. So, like I said, about 27, 28-ish mons. I forget the exact count, but first one I wanted to touch on was Cinccino, and this thing, I think this is going to be probably the first mon I build around. Obviously Skill Link is the go-to ability, and heck, this thing can run Life Orb, it can run Band, it can run King's Rock, it can run Scarf, assuming you need to. But GW, where would you put your focus on in terms of item or whatever?
Right. So for Cinccino, right? Talking about Cinccino, right?
Yes.
Alright, so for Cinccino, I don't know, I guess I would probably run King's Rock. Like, honestly, I think the only chance you have of getting past Mons, like, Mudsdale is, like, flinching it, like, 5 times in a row. Other than that, I don't think it's, like, that useful outside of being, like, maybe a fast pivot Pokemon with U-turn. I can, like, maybe check Dark Volley. It still take, like, 40 from U-turn. I think it's probably going to be, like, a C-rank Mon, but maybe, I don't know. I have too much to think about it. What do you think, Spatial?
I do certainly think Cinccino, it's not going to be unusable like it was last gen, because notably the somewhat decreased power level means that there is a little more oomph behind those choice band boosted tail slaps. It still suffers from the same issue where it just doesn't have the coverage to break through what it needs to. So it does have its speed and the right power going for it, so I don't think it's going to be completely unviable. But it really needs specific support in order to actually get anywhere, which is why I don't think it's going to become a meta staple by any regard.
Yeah, Cinccino, to me, it seems like one of those guys that seems like a really nice, I guess you could say, carpet offense against a lot of opposing offense. It has solid coverage against the likes of, like, Ninetales and, like, other offensive fire types, like, what's it called, Rapidash, and it also has coverage for random stuff like Basculin, who may or be dead now, by the way.
Yeah.
And, like, knockoff for, like, Haunters and stuff like that. So I don't think its coverage is something to be underestimated, and I think it has a lot to bring to teams. Oh, and also, I guess I'd also like to mention just the protective pads as an option against Rocky Helmet users, just as an option.
Yeah, so Cinccino it's fast, and it does damage. That's pretty much it. I really don't have anything to say about this. I think it's, like GW said, it's probably going to be like a C rank Mon. I don't think it's that strong. I mean, with the choice band, it gets stronger, but I just don't have a lot of hope for it.
Yeah, I mean, you shouldn't underestimate those tail slaps. They'll slap you one too if you do that, but overall, like, I do think that some things came with this shift that are not doing Cinccino any favors, especially Mudsdale. Like, if you go up against someone with a Mudsdale, by basically clicking any skill link move, you're given that, even triple axle, which Cinccino got as a new trick. You're basically just giving that Mudsdale a fat defense bonus. So, I mean, and another thing is like it's already been said, like, it doesn't really, I think it was Facial who mentioned it, is it still doesn't really have the tools to break through some of its common checks, mainly steel types. It didn't really gain anything to do against them except I think it has knockoff, which it already had anyway. So I don't know. I think Awen's probably right in the end that it's not going to be a very highly ranked mon despite its speed and offensive power.
Yeah, the speed tier is nice, and it's not overpowering at all. It's just one mon that with all of its friends that came down with it from RU that just really don't help its cause, like steel types and all that. So, because that's like the one type that it definitely can't touch very well. I agree with the ranking. In the C ranks, somewhere C plus or even a solid C. I don't see it going any higher than that unless something drastic happens. But anyway, next mon I want to touch on is Clawwitzer. This thing is a beast. Give it specs, give it life orb, give it U-turn, and you're just gonna give opposing teams headaches. JW, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Closer will be a pretty decent mon. One of the things I noticed is the team that Awen gave me is the grassy terrain plus terrain pulse, which is apparently a 195 base power grass move under grassy terrain. So if they have a wishy-washy, they're just going to get absolutely blown away. Gastrodon obviously gets knocked out in one hit. You can Ice Beam the Alone Executor. His one issue is definitely having to deal with like really scary offensive threats that are faster than you. Having to deal with like a Vanilla in your face, or maybe like I don't know, like a Rotom or something, because there's not really much you can do there. But I think it'll be really good versus like slower balanced teams for sure. It'll definitely shine there. What do you think, Spatial?
This shift seems to have there seems to be a running trend of giving us just these absurdly powerful attackers, and Clawwitzer is no exception. I do think it does get Dark Pulse to handle Jellicent to an extent, but if you're not running the Grassy Terrain plus Terrain Pulse strategy, Gastrodon can be a real pain. That aside, though, it's just there's not really a lot to be said about it. It just clicks buttons and does insane damage. So I think we'll definitely be seeing more of it as a wall breaker.
Yeah, I'll also add, I'm pretty sure it doesn't have a way to deal with Poliwrath either, apart from the terrain pulse, as mentioned. I think a water wall breaker that's going to suffer because of all of these water absorbers just floating around. I mean, terrain pulse accepted.
Right.
But I think it's also options like flip turn and turn, which are pretty solid moves.
Yeah, I'm loving Claw right now. Claw plus Thwacky is literally one of the best cores. Yeah, so Terrain Pulse is 195 base power. Nails every grass type, or not every grass type, every water type with that grass coverage. And it's just sick. Its coverage is sick. It has 120 base special attack. Hits strong, and it's definitely versus like slower and fatter teams. It can rip walls, and I'm waiting for it.
Yeah, I think you guys mostly hit the nail on the head with it. I think that Thwacky being like a pretty common pick for making grassy terrain teams in NU is a big boost to Claw's viability because of that terrain pulse. Total power, of course, 195 is like pretty ridiculous. I will mention though that like we've already mentioned that Stunfisk G is going to be pretty common as a Spadef wall, and this is actually one case where I've seen it in action where Mimicry actually does it a favor, and you throw in Mimicry against Claw, and like it can eat Terrain Pulse or even its water moves because it gains the grass type and loses its other types. But overall, like I still think that it is going to be a great balance breaker and a good breaker for taking chunks out of thicker teams for sure.
Yep, I agree. It's going to fit in well, and yeah, I would be hesitant to use Flip Turn given that we got Gastro and Jelly as water absorbers. So I mean, U-turn should definitely be its pivoting move. So Thank goodness it's got that. So next we're going to move on to a trio of special attacking dragons, or was it just a duo? I think it was just a duo. But yeah, the first one we're going to touch on is Duraludon, Click Draco.
Draco.
Yep.
Click Draco.
Like Draco.
Draco.
So yeah, Duraludon, I easily, and I think we can all agree, I think we do agree, this thing is going to be on the first voting slate whenever, I think it's like within this first week. But it's, I forget its base special attack, but its Draco Meteors will hurt very, very hard if you do not have like we've been talking about Stunfisk, or a fairy type or whatever. But that's where its secondary typing comes in with Steel. But GW, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Duraludon is very good. I mean, unlike Grandpa and Alolan Executor, it has a far better speed tier. It's like almost 300 speed. I believe it hits like 295, so it's like around the same speed as like Toxicroak and Skuntank. So it can potentially outspeed those. I've also seen a few people running Scarf Duraludon because it actually has a manageable enough speed stat to where it can afford that. However, I mean, the only real coverage it gets is T-Bolt, but typically struggles against Steel types, especially Sunfisk Galar, which is only going to rise a lot in usage. I think it's going to have a decent amount of counterplay, but it'll still be a top mon for sure.
Yeah.
Do you think Spatial?
Well, remember when I mentioned that his shift gave us a lot of special wall breakers? Duraludon was one of the ones I was talking about, and it just brings both raw power and great speed to the table, which this is probably common sense, but makes for an excellent combination for a wall breaker. And Dragon Stab is fairly hard to contest because we do have a few steel types, namely Ferroseed and the returning Silvally Steel, but both of them lack reliable forms of recovery. And in the case of Stunfisk Galar, they can be worn down pretty quickly by having to check other threats. So it's incredibly hard to deal with. And I do think something that could be experimented with more. Duraludon actually gets Swords Dance, and it has a decent physical move pool, so I don't think it's going to be meta by any means, but there's always the ability to try and mix it up if your team requires it.
Duraludon also gets access to Iron Defense and Body Press, so like even without an Iron Defense boost, Body Press is still chunking Stunfisk Galar for a lot, so I wouldn't give Stunfisk that much credit. I think at the counterplay to Duraludon right now, it's mostly limited to kill it before it kills you. Like, there's a few Specs Mons that we have that can just kind of slap it in one hit. But apart from that, the defensive answers to Duraludon are pretty thin, and the counterplay to them is a lot easier.
Duraludon's insane, and there's not much that you're switching into Steel Dragon coverage, because, you'd think Fairy type, that definitely switches in until you get rocked by Flash Cannon, and then set into the other dimension. And then even Stunfisk isn't a great counter, because Duraludon plus Thwackey, makes it into a grass type, so Draco is going to bop it. Yeah. And yeah, it has very limited defensive counterplay. Offensively, I guess you can check it with Vacuum Wave Croak, I guess, but Duraludon's busted, and please ban it.
Yeah, it definitely has very, very limited defensive counterplay. Like, I think you said it, Sunfisk G is probably one of the few, and I even was thinking about that, combining it with Thwackey earlier, which is an added benefit to Duraludon because it weakens opposing, earthquakes and so on. But overall, yeah, what a nuke, and I think that's one big thing it does have over the other two dragon nukes that we're talking about, is that it gets the Steel Stab too, to really abuse the chunk of fairies that we got that might be switching in, and we'll talk about these fairies later. But yeah, I think mainly right now the counterplay that we're going to see against Duraludon is more offensive, and so it is definitely going to be a difficult mon to deal with. Hard to say whether it'll stick around, but we'll see. I think overall, from what I've heard, I think people are leaning towards Drampa being the most broken of the three, but it's hard to say. Like, they're all pretty crazy.
Yeah, and Drampa was, that was a mon that also dropped, and we're definitely not gonna we're not gonna be touching on it because its power is already kind of self-explanatory, but yeah, but Drampa definitely will be competition for these other two. And speaking of these other two, the other special attacking dragon we wanted to touch on was Executor Alola, aka Neckboy, Click Draco.
Draco.
So it's got a nice I guess offensive and defensive typing grass dragon. It's actually one of the I'd say it can handle Stunfisk better than Duraludon can at the very least because of the grass typing. GW, what do you think?
Yeah, it's one of the Pokemon that I've used the most so far, and I think that it is arguably top two, if not the hardest Pokemon in the entire tier to switch into. I mean, Leaf Storm pretty much destroys all the fairy types that are trying to switch into Draco Meteor, or at least pressures them heavily no matter what. Flamethrower destroys all the steel types. Like Giga to get your health back if needed. I think if it comes in on the right, like bulky ground, or any other type of passive mon, it can just wreak havoc. I think the hardest part is definitely getting it in for free. Like if it comes in on like a bulky electric type with Volt, it kind of just loses all its momentum, and because it's so slow, it's hard for it to get into advantageous positions at times. But if so, it can just absolutely just destroy everything. But yeah.
All right, so I think Alola and Eggy, there's not really a lot I can say about it that doesn't really apply to Duraludon. It's definitely a lot slower in exchange for having I'd say marginally better special defense, and yeah, it also gets Flamethrower to hit steel types, which notably Duraludon doesn't. It's just kind of hard to talk about because, to reiterate, it's a lot like Duraludon in that I really don't know how to describe it. Think Duraludon, it's slower, but it has more coverage and it can run Trick Room feasibly.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'd put it.
Yeah. Not gonna lie, I'm actually not really that impressed by Alola and Executor. So like apart from like a Trick Room set, which that would be pretty scary.
Mm-hmm.
I think that keeping up offensive pressure against it is actually not really that difficult because most of the mons in this tier can deal solid damage to it, even if it means you gotta die in the process. Because, like, Alolan Executor's bulk, while pretty solid, isn't, like, stellar or anything. So, like, a lot of our new threats can just kind of like do massive damage to it and not really give it a chance to come in, like Vanilla and Whimsicott and solid damage before it gets attacked, and stuff that like Jellicent can just carry Ice Beam, so it's not like Eggy can reliably come on that either.
Yeah, for me, Eggy is like another mon. It's kind of like Claw, or like other mons that you have, or like Duraludon actually, where you have to offensively check it, because defensively nothing really wants to take a Specs Draco, a Specs Leaf Storm, or even a Specs Flamethrower which for some reason it gets. I don't know why. But being able to, like, dunk on a lot of shit just with those moves alone makes it really hard to switch into. And you like it's been said, it's like Vanillix and Ice Beam Jellicent. Grass Dragon isn't that great defensively, and lots of things can pack coverage like Ice Beam Jellicent and just smack it before it even gets a chance to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you guys covered most points. I think it's one thing that sets it apart from Duraludon is that it had, like GW said, it has Leaf Storm too, which is basically Grass Draco Meteor. And so having two of that super high power stab at its disposal, it just makes it that much harder to switch into. And of course, like you guys said, would be defensive counterplays like Ferocity, you just get roasted by Flamethrower. So yeah, it is a bit hard to check defensively, but I think one thing that Duraludon has over Eggy in a big way is that Steel Dragon is just way better of a type overall than Grass Dragon. Grass Dragon opens up some serious weaknesses to Eggy, from common poison moves, Toxicroak and Haunt are pretty rampant, and being weak to U-turn is not doing it any favors either. So I think that goes along with Mari's point that there's a lot that can do damage to it as well. And I mean, to further that, obviously someone who loves Ninjask wouldn't be very worried about Executor Alola, but overall, still another Dragon Nuke that we've been gifted.
Yeah, it's yeah, I think Eggy's gonna fit in pretty nicely. I mean, if not, it just may end up being on the voting slate along with Duraludon as well, and it could just get banned as well. But at least for the time being, it'll fit in nicely. But at the same time, like you guys have been saying, scary to switch in on, assuming you can do it in the first place. But next one on the list, Frostmoth. This it's got that typing where you kind of need boots on it every single time that you use it, and it's good QD sweeper. And given the mons that we have, at least I think it would fit in nicely. GW, what do you think?
Alright, moment. Alright, so I think that... I'm about Frostmoth, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Frostmoth, yep.
I mean, I think Frostmoth is going to be really good. It has the ability Ice Scales, which doubles its Spadef. So it's going to be really hard to take that thing down when he's running special offensive moves. With it, because of the introduction of heavy-duty boots, you don't really have to worry about knockoff as much. Easily being able to set up on something like Vanillux, being able to set up on Executor, being able to set up on Rabombi. I think it's going to be really hard to stop. I think it could be especially scary on maybe a screens team or something. There's definitely the types of builds that can support it, so I think it'll be a really solid mon. Probably not broken, but really good. What do you think, Spatial?
Well, Frostmoth is really interesting because while its typing would initially lead you to believe that it'd probably be pretty easy to break through even with the Quiver Dance, I think Ice Scales is really what makes it a viable option, because if we take something for, example, Clefairy, as soon as you get a Quiver Dance up, or even before that, it's going to be impossible for them to break your substitute, assuming you're running it. So, can find opportunities against a lot of the weaker special attackers. Even something like a Cofagrigus as a Shadow Ball can be turned into a setup opportunity. So, I think that's really the beauty of Frostmoth. It can definitely be a bit hard to get going, but it does find opportunities to get in, which is why I think it's a legitimate option, especially against more passive teams that can't really find a good way to break it down before it can get going.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. I definitely think that Frostmoth can run some very solid offensive with Quiver Dance and Substitute, just by virtue of being able to set up on basically every weak special attacker out there. I think there's also something to be said about defog sets, since that ice scales means that it can come in several times against various Pokemon, and heck, I think it can even run hybrid sets, like with Quiver Dance and Defog. I think it's a solid Mon overall.
What are we talking about?
Frostmoth.
Frostmoth.
Oh, Frostmoth. Right. So, this thing is like baby Volcarona, except if Volcarona was like slow as shit. Well, I mean, 65 isn't that bad. But I think with heavy duty boots being in the game, being able to switch in and, you know, really threaten things like ice. Like, I don't think it needs to run bug coverage, but like, I think ice grass, like Obama snow coverage, is pretty nice. And especially being able to sub up on passive shit and whoever. I really like the Mon. I gotta get into using it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I've watched a few games where it's done really well, and especially the sub Quiver Dance set. Like, if you can sub up on the right thing and get a QD in, then it's pretty crazy Mon. Like, really usable bulk, too, so it's a solid tank. And I've heard people talking about maybe even, like, a rest set, too, to let it absorb status and, like, heal up as well. But overall, like, it did come with a few things that check it completely, namely Ninetales is the main one that it has to worry about. So I feel like if you build around that and you have some good checks for Ninetales and similar mons, then I think that it can be a solid win con for sure.
Yeah, Frostmoth will. It's got the means to be a nice, you know, mid to late game sweeper, but I mean, you gotta bring, you know, the right stuff to switch into it and, you know, take it on and all that. All right, next we're gonna combine two mons into one because they're essentially doing the same exact thing, in a way. Galvantula and Vikavolt. Vikavolt was actually brought back from. At least I think it was brought back from NUBL. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. But Galvantula was one of the newer drops. Both being Webs users, one of them being a particularly better special attacker than the other. But yeah, definitely both Web users, same exact typings, but Vikavolt can avoid, you know, ground moves. GW, let's get your thoughts.
I mean, I think that Vikavolt is generally a better Pokemon than Galvantula. Like, I feel like you usually see Galvantula like some random low ladder person trying to use like some hyper offense squad. The main thing that Galvantula has is the fact that it has a good speed tier. It's also a lot less bulky, and it doesn't even have access to recovery. I think it's more like on hyper offense teams where if you're using like a bulky offense squad, you can maybe like switch into like a combo like once or twice and then roost it off. Then being able to have that longevity is really big and just better bulk overall, while still being able to pretty much have the same exact moveset. I think Vikavolt is going to be slightly higher in the VR, but I mean both will be decent mons. Kisho, what do you think?
I'm inclined to agree with you on the point of Vikavolt generally being more splashable than Galvantula. I do think it's worth noting, though, that specifically on those hyper offense archetypes you mentioned, Galvantula, its speed tier is really crucial because it can get the jump on so much, and you're basically guaranteed to get sticky webs off no problem. For reference, Galvantula hits base 108, which means it surpasses the Savali benchmark, which is huge, and it just generally gets the initiative against basically anything that's not Scarf, pretty much. So I do think that combination of speed and offensive presence can make it worthwhile on those niche hyper offense teams that really need that opening blitz and momentum to get their webs up and just start going to town.
Yeah.
There's also one more thing that Galvantula has to distinguish itself somewhat, which is compound eyes. So essentially has an over 90% accurate thunder, which kind of ties into its role of lead off, get sticky webs up, and blow a hole in something, and potentially even fish for a paralysis. So, to summarize, it's probably not going to be as good as Vicable, but it definitely has a place, albeit a small one.
Yes, I agree that the compound ice thunder helps offset the lower power that Galvantula has to work with. I suppose one thing I'm looking forward to is seeing agility vehicles set around, because those just sound really spicy, and I'm looking forward to using.
Yeah, so Galvantula is weird because I find it like a worse Vicable, but I mean, they both get webs, they both get, electric bug stab. That was a very stupid point. Where was I going? Galvantula is going to be like a dedicated lead. 108 speed is really nice with compound ice thunder, and nice and decent utility. Vic Volt's just going to be a breaker. Going to shit on things, with, Volt Switch and Energy Ball for those ground coverages.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think they very much fill similar roles on a team, both obviously having access to webs and the similar type of move. But it's almost like NU now has an electric bug choice for like any team archetype, if you want to look at it that way. Because like Facial said, like it is a really good option for like I see big potential for it on like hyper offense lead, to be able to get webs up fast and then just dent something with thunder, and then boom, you have your momentum right there. But then on the flip side, for like balance to bulky offense to potentially even stall, like Vicavolt's extremely versatile. Like it has excellent stats other than its speed all around. And if you do like some calc, like really it is, even though Galp gets like an accurate thunder, I think Vicavolt's Thunderbolt is like just as powerful, if not like slightly more powerful, just because of its massive base special attack of 145. So I don't know. My main thought on it is that I'm just happy that no matter the team, we pretty much have a electric bug to like turn to if we want to use one.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I definitely agree. I mean, I would probably definitely use Vicavolt more than Galvantula. I mean, the ground immunity definitely helps. I think you guys can agree with that. And I mean, it can easily. I mean, it can switch into stuff that Galvantula probably normally couldn't, like Gastrodon. And it's more of a wall breaker, like you guys said too. So yeah, I would say Vicavolt will definitely be ranked higher, get used more, what have you. And I would say they will both fit very well in the tier currently as it is. Alright, so next mon, we're not going to talk about too much, we're just going to maybe spend like about 10 seconds each going on it. Jellicent. It's a drop, it's a water immunity, and it's probably mostly going to be running like bulky defensive sets with a Hex or Scald, and I mean you could probably have like that really oddball spec set or a scarf set. GW, go ahead.
I mean, yeah, I think Jellicent is going to be a pretty solid physically defensive wall. I mean, with the introduction of Gen 8, it got Stream Step, which allows it to lower the opponent's attack. Also, you can also use it with Colberberry as a great Sneasel check, one of the scariest mons right now. As well as a really nice Gallade check as well. To be just unbanned Gallade, and that mon has very few switch-ins. I think it'll be pretty good. A really solid sock check as well. I think it'll be a top tier mon. It definitely has its uses over Gastrodon, being able to easily beat fighting types as well. Although being weak to like ghost types and being a little slow and passive sucks. Although I think there are some people using like offensive sets as well. You can probably use like specs or maybe like a sub offensive set. Be really nice as well. Yeah, next. Facial, what do you think?
I really like Jellison. I think it does trade some of the does trade Gastrodon's pretty cool defensive typing in exchange for actually getting recovery off of water moves in exchange for just getting a special attack boost. So you are right in that it does kind of hate tacking on those additional weaknesses with the ghost typing, but I do think it is very helpful in the sense that it's a great fighting check. It's actually one of the best checks we have right now to Sand/Alola, another new drop, which I think if that starts picking up in popularity, we can expect to see a lot of Jellison. And it's just a great utility mon in general because of its bulk and typing. One thing I would actually like to see some people explore is offensive Jellison, or even offensive Trick Room Jellison. It gets access to Water Spout, and it's actually fairly strong. So I think once the meta settles down a little and we can start to see more of each mon, and I think we'll start maybe seeing some offensive Trick Room Jellison pop up as win conditions.
Yeah, more on offensive Jellison. I just want to shout out offensive Jellison. Just because, as far as water offense goes, it has a somewhat better matchup against opposing water rivers. As in, like, it has access to Energy Ball. Was it Energy Ball or Giga Drain? I know it has either one of those moves. Oh, it has both. Okay, yeah, both of those moves. In any case, it's unique among our water types, apart from, like, Grass Pledge, Silvally Water. And so that means that as far as water offense goes, it can actually break through the likes of Gastrodon. And it has a solid option to use against, like, Poliwrath. Although you could, like, just use Shadow Ball on that guy. And yeah, I guess I am forgetting about Terrain Pulse Cloyster, but if you don't feel like running Thwacky, you can always just use Grass Coverage Jellicent.
Yeah, so Jellison is one of those weird mons where I think it could be like a nice glue on most teams. You know, Water Ghost isn't not that bad defensively, excuse me. And plus it has decent offenses, and I think it even has, like, decent speed. Like, I think it's base 60, but, like, that's relatively fast for a defensive mon. And, you know, broken strength set, good mon, would rate 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with the offensive sets myself, but judging from how I saw it perform in RU, it's going to be, as you guys said, a very solid, like, defensive blue mon. And I think its typing is pretty useful too. And it does have, like, its tools in, like, Will-O-Wisp and Strength Sap are really useful for it too. So I do think that we'll see a lot of it.
Back in Sun and Moon PU, I know that Specs Jellicent was definitely a thing with Water Spout, because that just hit, like, extremely hard. And I can expect, you know, something like that to happen here as well. I mean, like I said, defensive will definitely be the more used set, but you'll definitely get, like, that on, you know, that completely, you know, that one person using Specs or Scarf or what have you. But anyway, moving on. So we got a trio of ground types / rockers, and I think this was definitely needed. I mean, I think you guys can all agree with that, because, I mean, our rock types were extremely limited before they came along. But we got Rhydon back, we got Mudsdale, we got Runerigus. In that order, that's how good I see them. I mean, Rhydon's going to definitely be the most used of these three. GW, go ahead and, you know, build off of that.
I I think Rhydon's going to be pretty good. It's a really solid check to pretty much everything. It has a really high defense stat. Like I'm pretty sure like a neutral multi-attack from Savali maybe does just around 30%. You can easily chew that. It can easily check Rapid Dash. You can easily check Ninjask, Mary's favorite Mon. Minimal damage from U-turn, getting up the rocks. I don't think there's that many hazard removers and necessarily loses to either. I mean, the fact that you can even run like speed creep for like max speed executor and run ice punch from toxic for Eldegoss. I think I've found is probably the best sets for it. And they also got Mudsdale, of course, it's Chino Killer himself, the Stamina God. Also neutral. It's a pure ground type, so it has less weaknesses, which is really nice. Which means a certain Pokemon that instantly blow it away, you can easily take on. It also gives access to. I mean, it just a little bit better versus physical mons overall. So, I don't really have much of an opinion on it. What do you think, Spatial?
Well, for all the rockers we got, I think that they're pretty similar to each other in terms of what they can offer, though they do each have their own perks that could make them worth using on different teams. Like Rhydon, it obviously has a very strong offensive presence. It has Eviolite, and well, that doesn't mean it can't run leftovers. It does have more natural bulk just by virtue of having that item. And then for Mudsdale, you get leftovers, and you also have stamina, which means you're functionally. What's the word I'm looking for? You're functionally much bulkier than you actually appear at first. So, I do think that there is room for all the rockers we have, just on different teams.
Sure.
So, I think it'll honestly come down to what you're looking for in each of those mods to make your decision.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like Rhydon because I just like rock types around every now and then. I think it's a solid addition to our options as far as setting Stealth Rocks goes. Mudsdale, I'm not too impressed. I personally would probably rather use Sandaconda for the best move ever, Glare. And Renurgus is just like discount Golurk.
Discount Golurk.
Yeah, so the Rhyhorn evolution
There you go.
is one of probably the best physically bulky mons in the tier, with 120 defense plus Annihilate. Most physical attackers aren't gonna break through that, bar maybe a Banded Gallade. And Mudsdale, as GW said, Stamina God. And Rune, like Mari said, discount Golurk. And GW is bad, by the way. Just want to PSA.
Yeah, I've been waiting for Rhydon to come back since it left however many months ago. Probably my favorite rocker. The fact that it has the offensive presence that it does with excellent dual stabs and ground rock is a huge boon to it. And you guys have already said it, but it can really check some of our more prominent physical attackers that don't have water and grass coverage, which is really nice. Plus, a common set I've seen is Swords Dance too, which boom, right away after your rocks, you just become a crazy wall breaker. It's hard to contain. As far as Mudsdale goes, I think it is going to be taking up a chunk of the usage that Sanda did have, because it does bring a little more bulk and utility, I think. I mean, Glare is useful, that's true, and I do love Sanda, but I think on most teams, Mudsdale will probably fit better. And then, as far as Runerigus, it's our type replacement for Golurk, but it's not as strong and it's very slow. It's definitely different. I could see it maybe being a Trick Room setter in some cases, and it does get a lot of the same utility options as Confidence, like toxic spikes and stuff. But overall, like we'll have to see a lot more out of it to actually see if it's viable or not.
Yeah, right on. Like I said, it's gonna most likely be the most used out of these three, and it's also going to be team dependent, which I'm pretty sure you guys mentioned. It's really going to be team dependent. So, but overall, great addition to the tier. All three of these guys. All right, so let's take a break from the actual drops, and let's touch on the mons that the council unbanned from NUBL. So what do we got? We got Tauros. We got Vanillux, aka Ice Cream. We got what else was in NUBL?
Well, quick mention to Turtonator, who got unbanned and then rebanned in like 2 hours.
Right, it got unbanned and then banned within the same day. Agreed.
And so Sneasel, Haunter, Kingler. We touched on one, which was Micah, and then you already said the other two, I think.
Right. So, GW, what are your thoughts as far as what is probably going to stay, what's probably going to go, what have you?
All right. I mean, I think Sneasel is going to be really good. Of course, we got Choice Band knockoff, getting rid of all those items. We got the Icicle Crash, low kick coverage, strong Ice Shard priority as well. And then I think we already talked about Vehicle Bolt, but I'm pretty sure it's a NUBL mon as well.
It was.
It's obviously going to be really good with Sticky Web. And then what else we got? We got the...
You got Tauros, Ice Cream.
I forgot Glade dropped as well.
Oh yeah, Glade. Yep.
Psychic Fighting, incredible coverage. Just pretty much every fighting resist are like all the ghost types and poison types that basically get destroyed by knockoff instead of headbutt. I mean, itemless Kopak is probably the best answer, honestly. Like Jellicent or something like that. I mean, you can also run Scarf with Trick to like cripple those and switch in. And Swords Dance has very little answers. Oh yeah, Haunter also dropped. The mon is really threatening. It has a pretty solid special attack stat, and it's like just barely faster than Savali. And I think that Pokemon like Eldegoss being really popular is good for it, and having that be a thing, make up a potential like substitute set be like viable, as well as like a choice spec set as well. Because I think the only really real checks to it are like like Stunfisk Galar or something like that. Like there's really not that many especially defensive walls, and I don't think they don't really resist Shadow Ball very well. All the normal types get like destroyed by Sludge Wave pretty much, and then I think Drampa rose to RU and then dropped. Never mind. I don't think it was a NUBL.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, Kingler. I forgot Kingler.
Yes, I was gonna say Spatial. Go ahead and build off of that if you can.
All right.
I mean, I think
so. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off.
Never mind. I was gonna say that I think Agility Kingler is probably gonna be its most scary set. It's gonna absolutely destroy everything in the late game. It's definitely gonna be a late game cleaner for sure.
Alright. So, in terms of what I think of the NUBL mons that just got freed, I mainly have my eye on two of them, Tauros and Vanillux. Tauros, it's still as insane a wall breaker as ever, as when I was actually brought into the tier at first. It still has the insane coverage with Sheer Force, Body Slam, and basically you can pick and choose its options from there. Earthquake, Close Combat, Throat Chop, even something like Fire Blast to completely wreck Ferroseed. It has all those options, and it just has phenomenal offensive stats. Well, maybe not such great special attack, but it has an amazing speed tier and amazing offenses, so it's definitely a force to be reckoned with. As for Vanillux, it's in a similar boat as is Tauros, in that it's an incredibly hard to switch into wall breaker, but I do think it's at least limited a bit more by the fact that it's obviously much slower than Tauros, and it has nowhere near as good coverage. Its coverage is about ice type moves and flash cannon, so I do think that it could potentially still be problematic, but it does. I mean, Blizzard hits plenty hard. Don't get me wrong. It just kind of wishes it had more. It could work with is what I mean. Because I understand that it hits hard. It just wishes it had more. Is what I'm trying to say there. So, TLDR or Tauros, I could definitely see it getting rebanned. But for Vanillix, I think it's less cut and dry. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Let's see. As far as NUBL mons go, I guess the first one I want to mention is Gallade, because Gallade is a solid addition to our roster of fight. Particularly because it's harder to roll than opposing fighting types, if you have, because it has better, really nice dual coverage, as well as a very high attack stat, as well as access to just random stuff like Leaf Blade for Quagsire, etc. I want to shout out Kingler, because now that we have all these water absorbers running around, options like Basculin are going to be really hard to justify. I think Kingler is nice because it's a water offensive mon that actually is capable of doing stuff like boosting up and breaking past water absorbers like Gastrodon by using Swords Dance superpower, or breaking through what's it called? Jellicent by Swords Dance knockoff and stuff like that. So I think that is a really solid addition to the meta, if you ask me. Just having water offense that isn't just completely shut down by the plethora of water absorbers running around. And lastly, I guess I'll mention about the Vanillix thing earlier. Because of a few other drops that we have, like the fairies that we're going to get to later, I think steel types like Silvally Steel and even stuff like Mawile and Kling Klang might end up being run more. So I think in response to the higher amounts of steel types, Vanillix might actually see more viable counterplay, just because it comes par for the course with defensive counterplay to the likes of those mons that I mentioned and that we'll get to later.
Yeah, I don't have much else to add. I'm really a fan of all the NUBL unbans. There's a couple that I think should be banned, like Tauros. Tauros is fucked. Yeah, I don't really have anything much else to add of importance. So
yeah, I'll keep mine short too. Like I out of the list of them, I think that Sneasel and Haunter may be safe to stay now, based on what I've seen. Like the overall spread of mons that we got over the months that they've been gone will kind of keep them in check mostly, but they're still both obviously excellent choices and super versatile. I agree with a few of you that I think Tauros is probably the closest to still being broken. It's pretty much as insane as it was when it was quick banned. Like, it has such an excellent speed tier, and Throat Chop has been, like, the craziest tool for it. Like, still dealing damage to, like, defensive staples like Kaffa. It, like, still does, like, 40% to that on a switch-in, so it kind of remains to be seen whether it's still too much for the tier. And, yeah, solid mention to Kingler, too. Like, I'll have to see more of that, too, to really determine whether the water absorbers that we got can actually still keep it in check. Because it was banned very quickly back when it was originally with Vika. So, yeah, it's hard to say. But I think one point I'll add at the end here is that I think Gallade is probably not broken anymore because we did get a bunch of fast fairies too, which we're going to be talking about shortly, and that is not going to do this mon any favors.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tauros is going to be on the chopping block, along with, a couple of the dragons that we talked about earlier. And because it's got near perfect, if not perfect, coverage. Like with, you said, sheer force boosted throat chop, so it's really nice. So now let's move on to what GW was talking about at first. Ninetales. So we finally have a special attacking fire if you do not count workup Savali Fire. So Ninetales definitely brings, like I said, its presence into the meta as a nasty plot user, something with a good speed tier. It's got good coverage with Solar Beam, and it's kind of a situation of, try and find a way to, get around this thing. So, GW, you may now talk about Ninetales.
Alright. Ninetales is obviously going to be it's going to be a very good mon. Even though it's a bit weak initially, I feel like there's a lot of defensive mons, like Area or Aromatisse, or maybe just any steel type that's maybe forced out by it. You can get a free sub on that. Also, it's pretty good coverage. It has Fire Blast, Energy Ball, which isn't quite as strong as Solar Beam under Sun, but it's still pretty good for waters. It also has the option of running Scorching Sands if you're really that worried about something like Rapidash or opposing Ninetales as well. And it has a pretty good speed tier. It's faster than Savali, faster than Haunter as well. You can easily deal with those guys. And with heavy duty boost, you don't have to worry about getting poisoned by T-Spikes or getting worn down by Spikes or any of that. I think it'll be a top mon for sure. Definitely not anywhere near broken, but very good. Michelle, what do you think?
I am very pleased to see Ninetales drop down because before this shift, your best option for a especially offensive fire type was Heatmore, and it was either that or mixed fire volley, but I don't think either of those were particularly great, especially once Rapidash came into the picture. So it's nice to see a bit more type diversity just by virtue of Ninetales existing. And fire is actually... Ninetales has grass coverage and Energy Ball, which means that conventional fire type answers like Jellicent and Gastrodon are going to be in for a nasty surprise when they try to wall you, but only end up getting smacked by an Energy Ball for their troubles. So I do think it does suffer from the issue of fragility, like pretty much almost any fast wall breaker, but as long as you're using it right with proper team support, it can definitely put in work and punch holes in the opposing team. Just one more thing to note, it's also worth noting that it's, ironically enough, sort of a check to itself in a sense, because it can absorb opposing Ninetales Fire Blasts, though it does really have to be wary about Scorching Sands, so not really consequential or anything, just something funny to note.
Yeah, I think every Ninetales should probably be running Energy Ball because, and Nasty Plot, because when you really think about it, those are the only advantages that Ninetales has over Rapidash, because you'll notice that Ninetales special attack really isn't that. It's only got a special attack of 81 compared to the Rapidash's 80. So if you're not going to run Nasty Plot and Energy Ball as a coverage move, there isn't really much point to use it over Rapidash, who has a better speed and a comparable special attack. But I do like having Ninetales because now we actually have a fire special attacker that isn't that joke workup so volley. Solid mon with solid moves and a solid speed tier, but it needs things to justify its existence.
Yeah, Ninetales in itself with 81 base special attack is relatively weak, but the fact that it's a special fire type gives it somewhat of a niche already. And then broken heavy duty boots. My favorite set right now has been Nasty Plot Sub, Energy Ball Fire Blast. Well, by dragons, but that's when you just pair it with something to kill those. And then it's also paired with Thwacky on terrain. Big surprise. But Thwacky in terrain boosts your energy ball to like 117 base power. So it gives it even more of a oomph versus Battered Waters. And it's decent coverage, I guess, you're just going to smack dragons anyway. Stab. And Sub is really nice because that makes Clef setup bait.
Yeah, it has a couple options. I'm interested to see which takes over as like Sub in the last slot versus like Scorching Sands or something like that. But to be honest, Ninetales I think is my favorite drop from this shift. It's definitely something that is not nearly broken enough that we'll have to say bye to it soon. And it's like it's been mentioned already, we've been waiting for a special fire for a long time now. So to get one with this speed and I get that it has 81 base special attack, but that point pretty much goes out the window when its main set is plot. Because look at Croak, right? Its special attack is nothing to write home about either, and plot Croak ended up being the best set last month. So I think that this thing's actually really gonna be doing well on a variety of teams, and it actually brings some defensive utility against some of the other threats that came with this drop too. For example, something we'll probably touch on shortly is Rabombi. And Specs Rabombi is being looked at as a pretty crazy threat right now, but Ninetales can actually switch into anything it has to use. Same goes for Frostmoth. It can't really do much to Ninetales, and Ninetales can retaliate with a nice 4 times Fire Blast. So I really think it's a great pickup for us. And like it's already been said, Energy Ball is such a good coverage move for it to have. To really muscle past comment checks like Gastrodon and Quagsire and stuff like that.
Yeah, Ninetales will definitely fit in nicely, but you just gotta have, the proper, switch in, because I don't want to say it's exactly perfect, but it can be annoying to deal with. Alright, so next mon, kind of one of my favorites from this drop, Poliwrath. And the reason being is that it got some toys that were long overdue, in my opinion. It got Drain Punch, it got Close Combat, it got Darkest Lariat, stuff that it did not have prior to this generation. So definitely new toys to work with. GW, go ahead and build off of that.
Yeah, it's basically just another water absorber to help make Basculin have as little relevance as possible, while also helping to make Sneasel a lot less broken. And yeah, it did get a lot of nice moves with Drain Punch and Close Combat. You can run Sub Bulk Up Drain Punch, you can run Offensive Bulk Up, Sub Toxic to basically destroy Wishy Washy, ruin its hopes and dreams, as it is able to easily live an Earthquake behind the sub because of its defense investment. So it can blow away dragons with Ice Punch. I think it'll be a really solid mon that will catch a lot of people off guard because they don't expect how good it is. But yeah. Right, Spatial, what do you think?
I think Poliwrath, I haven't actually used it or seen it at all, so so what I'm saying at this point is mostly speculation, but I do think it is one of the 3 water immunities we received in this shift, so I do think it has at least some merit based on that, and it's actually pretty cool in that it can, like you said, it can do some different things. It can run Sub Focus Punch, Toxic. It has a lot of different options at its disposal, so I do think versatility is one of the main reasons you'd run Poliwrath over, say, Skeleton or Gastrodon. So I can see it maybe being a mon that has a role per say, but not enough to where it's actually tiered in NU. Though we'll have to see how the meta shakes out and see if that actually becomes the case.
Let's see, Polyrath. Well, a theme I keep coming back to is actually decent offensive water in a tier full of water absorbers. And I guess I'll take this moment to shout out Polyrath for having, because did you know that it run like Life Orb with max attack? Then you actually have a pretty solid chance to just 2-hit KO Gastrodon. Yeah, did you know that? It's guaranteed after one layer of spikes.
So that was close combat?
Yeah, with close combat.
Yeah. That's a new pickup for it, too.
And it can carry, like, Darkest Lariat for Elephant. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Polyrath performs, especially given that it is capable of breaking through our water absorbers. And that's all I gotta say about him.
Yeah, so my bad, I was muted. So my thoughts on Polyrath, I'm really liking it so far. Like, I haven't used it, but in theory, walling, the non-psycho cut Sneasels. Just nice typing it has. I was using it paired with Ribombi, and it's pretty heat. I forget who was using it. I think it was Hoenn was using like an AV one with Circle Throw. That was kind of cool. But like offensively now, CC, Liquidation, Ice Punch, it's just going to be so strong. And Darkest Lariat even to hit Jellicent. I'm looking forward to it. And I don't think it'll end up like it's other frog like Brethren. I think it'll actually be viable and definitely be, a staple on some teams that are, need those valuable resistances.
Yeah, totally. This is another one I was looking forward to big time. I always thought that water fighting was like a really cool typing both defensively and offensively. And Polyrath has it's an offensive mon that has excellent, well, maybe not excellent, but great bulk all across the board. 90 HP, 95 defense, 90 special defense. So that gives it a lot of versatility as a bulky attacker. And like you said, sets like the phasing set with Circle Throw. I've seen even just, toxic stalling sets just to make use of its typing and bulk. And then also sets similar to Girder with bulk up and drain punch. All be pretty effective so far in the test matches. And then this is one thing that's gonna help Sneasel not get banned again, because it's just outright I've never actually seen anyone run Psycho Cut on Sneasel yet anyway. So honestly, I think that this thing will help keep it in check.
Yeah, Polyrath will definitely it'll definitely fit in really nicely here. Yeah, and Zero, I agree, huge Sneasel check, and if this meta needs anything, it's Sneasel checks.
Yeah, no doubt.
Alright, so so next mon is one of the two fairy types that Zero of us was talking about, Ribombi. And this thing is, I would say Specs will definitely be its most commonly used set, in my opinion. If not, it'll be like a QD sweeper set, or heck, you could even probably go with the, not as likable, Webs suicide lead, but Specs should definitely be the more common set. GW, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that Ribombi is going to be really good. We got so many good dragon and fairy types, and it's definitely the fastest one by far. An incredible speed tier. With timid nature, it can hit up to 3D1 speed. I think it's going to be most useful for spamming Moonblast, definitely. Having high damage output and just absolutely chipping away at steals. Also has access to U-turn. It's also fast enough to where it can be faster than like certain Scarfers and certain Pokemon at +1. And so it's also really it resists fighting by 4 times, so it's a really solid fighting check as well. I think he's going to be one of the top attackers for sure. What do you think, Spatial?
Well, I also like Ribombee. Am I saying that right? Ribombee? Is that right? It's been so long since I've actually read this mon's name, and I have a bad habit of getting the pronunciation wrong. Yeah, looks like I was right. Ribombee. Alright, so I also really like Ribombee offensively. My only gripe with it is that it's kind of helpless against any steel type not named Duraludon to an extent, because it's a lot like Frostmoth in that its coverage pool is pretty limited, but I think it has the tools it needs to actually be a legitimate offensive threat. It's fast, it's moderately strong, Parry is still a great offensive typing, even if Ribombee's coverage is limited. So, yeah. There's also I do think it's worth noting that to an extent, Ribombee faces competition from Whimsicott, in that while Whimsicott isn't quite as fast, it doesn't have a weakness to Stealth Rock, and checking the it also arguably has a better stab combination in Grass and Fairy. So though Ribombee does have a much higher special attack set to make up for it. So all in all, I do think Ribombee is going to be a very good offensive threat. It just needs to have its weaknesses accounted for by its team.
Yeah, I think Ribombee is a pretty solid pick right now. First, its speed tier is Cash, as was mentioned. And Ribombee has a lot of just cool options to use. It's pretty versatile as far as its set variety goes, maybe not its coverage. It also has access to defog, so that's pretty nice for an offensive defogger. And it has cool stuff like U-turn on top of that, which it's not like a super strong U-turn, but it's made a little bit stronger because, it's stab and all that.
This is another one of the ones that I think are really, really threatening. Like, remember when it was a Alolan Persian meta last month? Yeah, I haven't seen a single one since this new meta. Maybe because it's new toy syndrome, but maybe also because of these. Steals are like your only switch in, and and a lot of our steals, a majority, if not all of them, lack recovery. So chipping with Ribombee with spikes, wearing down those checks, and it's only 95 special attack, but that's the same as Spectrum. So, and then you can also trick and or switcheroo. I think it's trick that it gets. You can hit Stunfisk with one of those. Just trick it as specs and make it a whole lot weaker throughout the match.
Yeah, I've heard some talk about thoughts that Specs Ribombee is pretty much broken right now. We just touched on it, but at least we got Ninetales to switch into its moves, but otherwise, it does a good chunk of chip even to other switch-ins that people are trying to use right now. So that paired with its ludicrous speed, which I think hits something like 381 or something like that. It's going to be pretty difficult for the tier to deal with, I think. The Quiver Dance set, I've seen some people play with it. We just saw it in that game that we popped in that Davin was playing, and I also saw it in action on a Rabia team recently. And I don't think that Quiver Dance is the best thing for it, just because it doesn't hit hard enough off the bat, and people have time to get an offensive check in like a Scarfer or something like that. So I think Specs is really the main thing that we have to worry about. But overall, fast, powerful Fairy. something that NU didn't have before and we have today.
Yeah, I think pretty much any and all teams built, now kind of are required to have a steel type, given, how powerful this meta is now. So, that's just my opinion, though. Alright, so we got about 3 or 4 more mons here to go. So, next one, we're just gonna lightly mention Sableye. It's a good combination of fighting type switch-in coupled with the fact that it can stop setup sweepers with Encore or Taunt. I think Encore would be preferred, though. GW, what do you think?
Yeah. I think Sableye is not going to really be that good. I mean, it's a solid Tauros check and Gallade check. Outside of that, it's a little passive. I mean, if Gallade ends up being borderline broken, then maybe people will have to use Sableye because they'll have no choice on their bulk balance / stall teams. Other than that, I mean, there's probably better options out there. I mean, it's pretty frail. I remember I literally knocked it out with a neutral non-stab flamethrower from a low Negi at 75%. Its special defense is horrid. It's okay defense, but it's constantly forced to recover versus most solid attackers. As long as the thing that's trying to beat you isn't completely screwed over by Wisp, it's not that bad. What do you think, Spatial?
I'm kind of in the same boat as UGW. I honestly just don't really see Sableye getting any traction in this meta, especially when we have so many other, I'd say, maybe not objectively better, because Sableye at least has something in terms of Prankster, but I think there are just much better options that you could fit in the team that will do most of what Sableye can do, but better.
I think Sableye, give it a little more credit. I'll give it a little more credit because right now I think it's probably one of the single best answers we have to normal type offense, not named Kangaskhan. But as far as you can just go max physical defense and run a Rocky helmet, and now you've got a Mon that pretty much just whacks Cinchino, and Tauros is not breaking you. And it can just switch in.
I think it'll be somewhat okay for switching into, fighting in normal attacks, but mostly everything else is just gonna shit on it.
Yeah, I think I agree with Mari in that we gotta give Sableye a little more credit. It was insane in RU. It was an RU staple till basically this past month. And its ability to shut down physical attackers is appreciated. But I think that overall it probably will be less useful here, because I feel like our tier as a whole is kind of shifting towards special offense, as well as a lot of our excellent physical attackers are dark type. For example, Dark Valley and Sneasel, they can't really be shut down per se by Sableye because its prankster move, its Will-O-Wisp just fails against them, and they also resist foul play too, even though they do have good attack. So I do think it'll be less useful. In addition, we did get some Savage Fairies too, so I think all those things combined will probably make it less useful than we're used to it being this gen. But yeah, Sableye.
Yeah,
it'll always be annoying.
Yeah, it will. I mean, just you bring in that wrong Mon, and one little burn just completely derails your sweeping chances, and you're like, shit, So.
Yeah. Plus, it can often stall out Mons that are already toxic or whatever by just using priority recover over and over again.
Correct.
So
yeah. But anyway, moving on. So next Mon, Sand/A, Sand/Alola. So cool little toy that this thing got was spikes. It did not have spikes before, so I could easily see it being a kind of a nice spikes user on some teams. GW, I'm sure you've already got like one team with Alola Slash being a spiker on your team. What do you? But if you don't, go ahead and tell us now.
I haven't really, but I saw Davon building a team with like Vanillux plus Sandslash and literally spamming it in like 50 games within the time span of like 2 days. I think it's gonna be like a great spinner on like those like stand offense type of squads. So it's a solid Dragon Resist, solid Fairy Resist as well. You know, I think it's gonna be really nice. It gets knockoff as well, so that if they try to go like wishy-washy to check, you can at least have an option to get rid of their leftovers and make it harder switching. What do you think, Spatial?
I think with the addition of spikes, I think maybe we'll start seeing. I think we'll see utility sets a lot more than offensive sets with the combination of spikes and rapid spin, which offers great roll compression in the context of a team. My main gripe with it is just that while Steel Ice is pretty good for what it's trying to accomplish, it really doesn't like the great fighting types we have right now, and it also really doesn't like Ninetales being a thing. So, things short, I think it definitely has a niche if it's typing, bulk, and utility, but we'll have to see if it can actually pull anything off with all these powerful fighting types and Ninetales running around.
Yeah, I really don't have all that much to say about Sandslash. It spins, certain hits, it's Sandslash. If I got anything else to add, I guess it makes a nice rocker.
Yeah. Oh, my bad. But, Sandslash is kind of neat. Ice Steel is it's a nice typing, no pun intended, because get it, ice. But, yeah, this thing has a lot of utility, from what I can see. I have it pulled up right now. It has priority ice shard, which is neat. Knock, spin, which, I mean, defog is the superior hazard remove right now. Spikes and stealth rock, you know, even breaking sashes with voice crack, but breaking sashes with triple axle is really cool. I think defensively this thing has a lot of promise, but, you know, Ice Steel having a 4 times weakness to fighting and fire really sucks, especially in a tier with Ninetales and Gallade, which just came back. That's just 2 examples. And, you know, not really being able to touch Polyrath. I don't know why I just blanked right there, but yeah, Sandslash is cool. No pun intended. B+ mod.
Yeah, I'm also quite a bit of a fan of Sandslash Alola. Like, it's so much better than regular Sandslash, which is sad for regular Sandslash, but like, its bulk is so great, and it's a mod that, like, through its typing and bulk can actually reliably set up spikes and spin both. And I think there is value in that. Like, although I agree that defog is generally the best removal, on spike stacking teams, like, sometimes it can help for your main removal just to be spin. Like, as long as you can get rid of spin blockers and then use it that way. But overall, like, yeah, I think this thing's bulk is going to come in handy in allowing it to fulfill, like, some utility roles using that. The one other thing I saw our beloved Ice Lord Vin Rubicon threw this on a new Hail team, and man, with Flush Rust, this thing's actually kind of scary.
Yeah, I think with Jolly, I think it hits like 502 or something like that during Hail. Yeah, that's like already outspeeding like everything that we have. So, yeah, Slash will make a good addition to the tier, in my opinion. It's not overpowering, it's not underpowering, so yeah, it'll fit right in. All right, so I think I think this is the one that pretty much everyone's been waiting for. Sylvalis Steel. This was a mon that was taken from us during the last shift, and it's back, and I couldn't be happier. You can run. I mean, I think more so than not, it's gonna be running like a specially bulky defog set. Given how many threats are out there that can just wreak havoc if left unchecked. But GW, what are your thoughts?
Cavalli Steel is gonna be really good. I feel like at least half of the mons that dropped were either dragon types or fairy types. And I mean, it has base 90 stats across the board. 90 HP, 90 speed, 90 defense. So an incredible Abomasnow check, an incredible check to pretty much every single dragon that dropped. Great check to Rabambi, great check to Vanillux. So it gives access to defog, parting shot for momentum. I think it's easily going to be a top tier mon because it's a great glue that helps to stop pretty much every mon that's dropped from being quite as broken. It's also, it's a nice emergency check in case you forgot fairy or steel resist because of how threatening some of the new drops like Specs or Bombi can be and how difficult it can be to find switch into those mons. So Spatial, what do you think?
I think Steel Volley is. I'm actually very glad that it dropped, more so than maybe a lot of the other drops on the list, because it provides crucial. It provides teams crucial defensive counterplay against all these new insane fairy types that we're seeing right now. So I think that as we see Specs Rimbombi and the other fairy types like Whimsicott grow in popularity, we'll start seeing more of Sylvali Steel as just general roll compression as both a fairy type check and a very bulky defogger and pivot. It's incredibly hard to wear down with because I have a feeling that Ribbon-B is going to be paired a lot with entry hazards to try and make its attacks more threatening. Sylvali Steel, it's completely immune to toxic spikes, and it's resistant to stealth rock, so it's a lot harder to wear down in comparison to something like basically a lot of other defensive mons. So overall, I'm expecting it to fulfill a pretty important defensive need in a tier so long as the fairy types remain on top.
Yeah, Sylvali Steel, I'm just so happy he's back, Yeah. Yeah, I almost actually got emotional for just a second. Sylvali Steel is a solid mon right now. I think he's probably going to be rated very high because right now he is basically it as far as steel types go that aren't either A, passive, or B, carrying some secondary type that compromises its steel resistances. Like, Stunfish G isn't really that amazing as an ice type check, for instance. Sylvali Steel is just, it's going to be good. It walls, maybe not hard walls, but it eats attacks from a lot of the new threats, and it can cover, and it has a lot of coverage moves that it can just slap. Like, oh, hey, you're tired of Gastrodon coming in on your Sylvali Steel? Well, guess what? Grass Blitz just kind of kills you. Or, oh, hey, maybe some other water types that you can hit slightly harder with Thunderbolt. And, opposing steels, you can just hit them with Flamethrower. Ice Beam, all sorts of coverage moves that are just really solid on top of being the steel type. Perfect.
Yeah, I totally agree. Sylph's coverage, it was pretty sick. It's probably going to perform a very similar role to what it did when we still had it before it moved up. But this time, like currently, I'm a huge fan of it because Broken Dragons that we have, we just got, Rabambi, which is a big threat. Shit like Frostmoth, Gastro you can smack like Mario said with a Grass Pledge. It's just such a good mon. And being one of the only steel types in the game, not even just NU, in the game with defog, is really sick.
Yeah, I mean, excellent Valley form. It was missed the month that it left to RU, and we're happy to have it back. Like, can sing the praises of a pure steel with 95 stats across the board forever. Like, it's honestly just an incredible mon, both on paper and in practice. And you guys said it all pretty much. Like, it's a great tool to have back.
Yep, it's definitely gonna find its place in the tier with all the new toys that dropped and all that. So, all right, last mon, and that is the other fairy type that Zero of Us was talking about, Whimsicott. This thing can run. I would say specs first and foremost. It can run like a sub-leech seed set. It can run like a defensive set, and it's got Prankster, so it's got that working for it. But if it were up to me, or if it were me, I would say specs it faces competition from Rabambi when it comes to spec sets. So it might be better used as like a utility mon. But GW, what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think it has too much competition for the choice spec set. Like, I think the only really reason to use it would be maybe a random support set with Tailwind or sub Leech Seed. Otherwise, I'd rather use Rabambi or any other Pokemon for the most part as a specs user, because at that point I'm just using what is probably an inferior option in almost all cases. So, I don't know, what do you think, Spatial?
I was trying to sort of justify to myself a good reason to use it over Ribombee, but upon further analysis, I think really the only thing it has going for it is a secondary Grass Stab, which, when you compare it to Ribombee's coverage, doesn't really cover all that much compared to Bug Fairy. So I do think that there is some potential for sets utilizing Prankster, because Sableye having some potentially having legitimate use even in spite of its hard stats, I think speaks to the potential for Prankster. So I think Sub Leech Seed and generally just support sets in general might have a place in the tier. I'm just really not sure though, since we'll have to see how the meta really shakes up.
Let's see. Yeah, I think a lot of what Whimsicott wants to do, Ribombee can do better. But I do think I'll give Whimsicott a little bit of credit for having a defogger with a slightly better matchup against a lot of our rockers. Like, even if you go specs, it's correct me if I'm wrong. Does Ribombee have grass coverage? That's a good question.
I think it has Gigadra. I think it has Gigadra.
Yeah, it has Energy Ball. You're right. Gee, I'm running out of reasons to use Whimsicott. There's something to say about Whimsicott having Tailwind? Nope, Ribombee has Tailwind.
Prankster Tailwind.
Right.
Yeah,
Prankster Tailwind is definitely a good reason to use it.
Oh, right. Whimsicott can use Psychic to hit point. Oh, no, Ribombee can do that too. Yep. Oh, man.
Bro, like, why even have Whimsicott, you know?
Okay, fine. I'll give Whimsicott a little bit of credit for having Encore. Right, so Encore is actually a pretty solid option. And Taunt. Taunt and Encore. That's basically what Whimsicott has over Rybombi.
Yeah, so that's practically it. Once Rybombi gets banned, though, Whimsicott on the rise. And also, a really cool thing is that Whimsicott can't click Defog versus Dark types.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, even though Rybombi can. So Rybombi is clearly better than Whimsicott. I rest my case.
no, enough said.
Yeah, I mean, not really much else to add there. Like, Whimsicott does have a few things that differentiates it. Like, I don't think Rybombi gets defog, right?
Rybombi gets it, yes.
Oh, it does. Jeez. Okay, yeah, I'm starting to be on that merry train of why use it. No, I'm just kidding. I do like the idea of an infiltrator subtoxic set with leech seed as well, because then you can actually be feeding and toxicking things through subs, which is pretty neat. But otherwise, yeah, I think until Rybombi gets banned, if it does, Whimsy's pretty slept on.
Yeah, Rybombi's definitely the better of these two, and I mean, Whimsicott maybe does Rybombi's job in one or two small ways, but Rybombi's clearly the better of the two. Alright, so I mean, that pretty much covers all the notable new drops. I mean, there were a couple of others like Aromatisse and stuff like that and Gastrodon, but I mean, they were okay enough to not get a mention. So, there are a couple more things here. Oh yeah, the NU League is currently, I want to say, in like round 6, 7, I forget which. But I'm not sure. I mean, correct me, everybody. I'm not sure if everybody's in or not still. I mean, I know I am, and I'm playing my matches on Saturday. GW, you are still in, from what I see, but nobody else. So, GW, what are your thoughts here, buddy?
Oh, I believe it's like round 7.
It is round 7, yes.
Yeah, it's round 7. So I'm playing GRDN.
Yeah.
He's a fellow he's a fellow snake starter in NU, just like me. So it should be a good match if he responds. That is, he hasn't responded yet, but I'm sure he will at some point. That's literally his name. It's JRDN. It's literally his name.
Take out the
I know, but it's pronounced.
Take out the vowels and you got Jordan.
I'll say Jordan.
And then
if I don't get the act win, it'll definitely be a really good and close series, I think.
And then, yeah, and I'm GW, I'm in the same losers bracket with you. I'm facing, I'm not sure if anybody's heard of him, Lil Infant Tylenol. But, and, yeah, and so I'm completely unaware of how this guy plays, so I don't know really what to expect, but I'm still going to play my best. But, yeah, so since this is the losers bracket, we lose and we're done, so we're going to make sure it, doesn't happen that way. I mean, me and GW in the are going to be the last two in the losers bracket, guaranteed. Counting on it. So, let's see. We're approaching the 2-hour mark. Jesus. All right. I mean, for those of you who stuck around long enough to watch it, kudos to you. So if you guys did like this, drop a like. And we will see you in the next one. Until then, peace out.